Biruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samech Dalid Amud Beis, the new Gemara, 7 lines from the top. Our Mishnah details at length the procedures for bringing a carbon Pesach, beginning by saying that we need 3 kitois, 3 different groups. Says the Gemara, Omer of Yitzchok, Ein ha-Pesach nishchat ele begimel kitois shel shloishim b'nei Adam. There's a requirement of having 3 kitois, 3 groups, each one of 30. The Gemara asks, my taimo, why do we need 3 kitois? Kahal ve'eda ve'Yisrael. It says in the Pasuk, in regard to the carbon Pesach, it calls it a kahal adas Yisrael bein ha'arboim. Since they're shachtu oisoi kol kahal adas Yisrael, we learn from there that each one is with reference to 10 men, whereby we have 3 different kitois. Only, if that's the case, why not bring 10, 10, and 10? Mesafkelon, because we have a suffix. I bebas achas, I bezachar zeh. Does it mean all 3 together, meaning 30 together? Or does it mean that you should have 3 different groups, one after the other, 10 of each? Hilkach bo'in and sholosh kitoy shel shloishim b'nei Adam. Therefore, we require 3 groups of 30 people each. Why? Because the bebas achas mimonavshach. If it's just all together, you need 30. Then ha'ika, then you have it. V'i bezeh achar zeh ha'ika. And if it's one after the other, then you'll have also 10, 10, and 10. You'll have your 3 groups. Hilkach, the Gemara then concludes, what is for the minimum amount of people you can have? Bechamshin nami sagya. Even to have 50 would be sufficient. Beginning with 30, says the Gemara, and then you take away 10, and you're left with the 20, whereby you're adding another 10. And you do the same thing for the third cut, as follows. Da'ili tlosin va'avdi. You have 30 that are then doing the avodah, the shoichet, the carbon Pesach. Aili asara v'nafki asara. 10 then enter, and 10 then go out from that original 30. They mean mashlim, a group of 30 now. Aili asara v'nafki asara. And then again, after the second group shechs the carbon, so then 10 new people come to join, 10 of the older 30 leave, whereby again you're left with 30. So you're covering all your grounds, whether it's going to be 30 that is necessary altogether, or 3 different groups, 10 after 10 after 10. The Gemara now brings the Mishnah, Nichneses Chat HaRishoina, the first kat, the first group enters. Itmar, Omar, Abai Omar, Nin'alu Tnan. It states in the Mishnah that after the first group enters, they close the gate. Abai, however, he learns that the Mishnah is talking about where it closed on its own. Rava Mar Noy Alintman. Rava, he goes with the way the Mishnah stated in front of us, that they closed the gate. My Beinai, what is the difference between Abaye and Rava, whether it was closed or they closed it? Ike Beinayu lemismach anisa. The difference between the 2 opinions is, do we rely on a nes? As follows, Abaye Omar Ninalu Tnan, Abai explains that since it says that it's closed on its own, it means that anybody who wants to then enter, will allow them to enter, and will rely on a nes that there'll be enough people afterwards to form a second and third kat. Rava says, it states rather that they closed it. We don't rely on a nes. They want to make sure that they have enough people to then form a second and third group, and therefore they close the gate after the first group. The Gemara brings another Mishnah with the same machlekes, v'hodesnan, Rabbi Yehuda. It states in Edios. Rabbi Yehuda said, now the background of this Mishnah Edios is that Akavia ben Mehalel, he ruled that the Meis Soita cannot be given to a woman who is a Giyaris or a Shifra that's Mishuchreres. On that, the Chachamim argue. So the Mishnah brings that the Chachamim who argued on Kavya ben Mahalil brought from Shmaye va'Avtalion, the Gedolei Hador, the Av Bezdin and Nasi, who then gave the Masorah over to Hillel and Shammai Hazoken. And the Chachamim said that they ruled that you do give the water, as they brought a specific case that took place. They gave the water to the woman who was a Knainis, who was it's not a Knainis, a Shifcha Meshuchreres. So then, on that, Akavi ben Mahalil stated that that was something that was incorrect, and he said the words Dugma Hishkua, which could be implied to say Dugma, it was an example, she was an example that they fed her the Mei Soita, because they themselves were Giyarim, Shmai v'Avtalim were Giyarim. Therefore, they also allowed such a woman to also be fed the Mei Soita. So that was taken as a zilzal to the kavod of the Chachamim, of the Gdolei Hador. So it says over here that they put him into Nidui. On that, the Mishnah retorts with Rabbi Yehuda, and that's what's quoted over here. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Chas v'sholom, sha'akavya ben Mahalil niznade, to say that he was put in Nidui, can't be. Chas v'sholom, heaven forbid. She'ein azora nin'eles al kol odom b'Yisrael b'chochmo u'v'yiras chet ki'akavya ben Mahalil, that the doors of the Azara would not have closed on anybody that was greater than him. In other words, there was nobody amongst all of the people who brought the Korban Pesach as great in Chachma and Yiras Shomayim than Akavi ben Mahalil. So on this, the wording also is an argument between Abaye and Rava. Abaye mitaris l'taimei, the Rava is mitaris l'taimei. Each one explains according to his own reasoning, the way he explained as well in this Mishnah. Abaye mitaris l'taimei ein be'azora mishosh in Elis al kol odem b'Yisrael b'chachma v'yiras chet Akavi ben Mahalil. Abaye said the lashon of the Mishnah should be like this, that the gate wasn't closed, again, because it was closed on its own as a nace. Nobody was greater than Akavi ben Mahalil in Chachma and Yiras Chet. On that, Rava says, according to his rationale, Rava mitaris l'taimei, according to the way he has the understanding of our Mishnah, Ein be'azar b'shah shenoy alin oiso al kol Yisrael b'chachma v'yiras chet be'Akavi ben Mahalil. So Rava has it that they closed the gate, meaning that nobody was partaking in the Korban Pesach as great as Akavi ben Mahalil, that they closed the gate when they then proceeded to do the Korban Pesach. Al Koparim, that is the machlokes in Abaye v'Rava in our Mishnah as well, whether we say nin alu or noy alin. Tonu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brayso, me'oilom no nismaich odem ba'azorah chutz min Pesach echod. Never was a person crushed in any time that the Korban Pesach was brought, other than in the Azara, other than one time when the Korban Pesach was brought, because of the great amount of people. Shaya b'mei Hillel shenismaich boi zoken echod v'hoyu korin oisoi Pesach me'uchin. There was an elderly person who was indeed crushed because of the great amount of people that overflowed in the Azara in the time of Hillel Hazoken, and that Pesach was referred to as the Pesach me'uchin because a person was crushed. Tonu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brayso, Pam Achas Bikesh Agrippus Hamelech Litin Eina B'Achluchsei Yisrael. There was a time when Agrippus Hamelech wanted to determine the populace of Klal Yisrael. Omar le Kohen Gadol, he turned to the Kohen Gadol and he said, Teinei necha b'Psachim, go pay attention to the amount of the people bringing the Korban Pesachim. From that we can then make a census as to how many people are in Klal Yisrael. Not a kulya mikol echad v'nimtza sham shishim riboy zugei klayos kiflayim ki yoytzei mitzrayim chutz mitamei v'shoya b'derech v'choyka. It states that the Kohen Gadol took a kidney from each Korban Pesach, and there was double 600,000, double the amount of that who left Mitzrayim. That means there was 1.2 million Korban Pesach that was brought. And that excludes those who were Tameh and were also far that could not come and bring the Korban Pesach for Korban Pesach Rishon on Yudalid ben Nisan. They'd have to then do it on Yudalid ben Iyar. The Gemara then says, "Ve'in l'cha kol Pesach Pesach shelo nimnu alav yoser be'asora b'nei Adam v'hoyu karnas a Pesach mu'uvin." And there was no Korban Pesach, did not have less than 10 people included in his Chabura. And therefore that Pesach was referred to Pesach Mu'uvin. There was such a big amount, a wide amount of people who then brought the Pesach. In fact, the Gemara asks on this procedure that when the Kohen Gadol then took the kilya, the kulya in Aramaic, a kidney from each Korban Pesach, that's supposed to be burnt on the Mizbeach, not al kulya, asked the Gemara. How did the Kohen Gadol do that? Answers the Gemara, boy, aktura. The Gemara asks its question still. Hare, you're supposed to burn the kidney on the Mizbeach. The Gemara answers, the hadar mikdar lehu. After he took, then he burnt it on the Mizbeach. Ask the Gemara, but still, v'haksiv, it states, v'hiktiroi. And we learn that from there, from the pasuk v'hiktiroi, shelo yarev chalovov shel zeh b'zeh, that you shall not mix the inner organs, this carbon with the other carbon. The hodar, Gemara answers, maktir lehu chada chada. When he was maktir and burnt the kidney on the mizbeach, he did each one individually. Still asked the Gemara v'hatanya, it states in the pasuk, gabe carbon pesach v'hiktirom. And we learn from there, sheyeh kuloi ke'echad. The entire Korban Pesach has to be burnt together. And says the Gemara, Ella tfisa ba'alma. He didn't take the kidney and then hold on to it for a period of time. No, he took the kidney momentarily and then told his shaliach, take a bean or a rock, a stone, a pebble, that is then going to signify this Korban Pesach. Then he put the kidney right back. As the Gemara explains, the shakil minayu ad yahavin le midiachrina. He took it, and then when they brought him a pebble or a bean to be able to make the census, then he put it right back. So then ultimately that kidney was, yes, burned together with the rest of the Korban Pesach. The Gemara now brings the next part of the Mishnah. Kohanim oimdim shuros. The Kohanim would line up from the place where the carbon was, the Kabbalah, where the Shechita was made, where the Kabbalah's Hadam was done by the Kohen, and then there was a line of Kohanim that was then up to close to the Mizbeach, where then they were either Zorek or Shoifech, the Dam on the Mizbeach. So Gemara says like this, my time, what is the reason for this, that when they would line up, they would line up, and those who would line up would use the silver bowls, would use the silver bowls. The other line would have the golden bowls, they would use the golden bowls. What's the reason? Asked the Gemara. If you're going to say that he took the golden one and then he brought back the silver one, that means that that's a problem, because he was taking the golden bowl that was full and then returning back the silver bowl when it was empty. And that's a problem because you're taking that which is a greater type of kedusha and then lowering it to a smaller level. Then hochanami dilma shakli bar masan umali bar mea. Even if you're going to take silver with silver, gold with gold, you might take a bowl that's worth double the amount, something that's more valuable. So therefore, you should have the same problem. L'chara of ma'lim bekodesh v'lo maridim. Answers the Gemara, Ela de hachi shapir. No, the reason why the line of Kohanim either consistently used either silver or consistently used gold is because it looks better that they are going to use the same silver, the same gold, aesthetically. But in terms of Ma'lim Bekodesh, there's no issue of Ma'lim Bekodesh v'lo maridim, because each bowl that contains the blood, that is of a specific independent Korban Pesach. So therefore, if it's a different bowl that was, let's say, of less value than being used afterwards, a silver one that was being brought back, that's not going to be Maridim Bekodesh, because that's a separate carbon. These bowls that they used to then mekabel the dam, this klishares, this did not have a point on did not have a flat bottom, only a pointed end on the bottom. And the Mishnah explained, because if they would leave it on the ground for short period of time, it could then cause the blood to coagulate, whereby they could not then be zarek the dam. Tana Rabban, the Gemara brings a brayse, kol hazabazichin sheba mikdash lo hayu lahen shulayim chutz mibezichin levonin shel lechem haponim. All of these types of bowls did not have a flat bottom, with the exception of those that was carrying the levoina for the lechem haponim. Why? Because there was a concern, if it was indeed pointed, so then they would put it down by the lechem haponim, and it would then cause the lechem of the lechem haponim to break. So therefore, they made it so that there was an exception. It was a flat bottom. They can then put it down without it causing any problem to the lechem. The Mishnah says, Shochat Yisrael v'kibel hakoyin, that the Yisrael was shoichet the carbon, and then it states that the kohen was then mekabel adam. Ask the Gemara, lo sagya de lav Yisrael? Is it not sufficient that it not be a Yisrael that shoichet the dam? In other words, can a kohen not be shoichet the carbon? Is it only a Yisrael? Gemara says, Hi gufa kamash malon. That itself is what we're coming to learn. That a Yisrael could yes be shoichet. Certainly a kohen can do the shchita. That's one of the dalit avodas hadam. The chiddush is that a non-kohen can shecht the carbon pesach. Higufa kamash malan the shchita bezar keshero. The kibel hakohen. Then it states that the kohen is mekabel the dam. Hokamash malan mikabola ve'elech mitzvahs kuhuna. That once the dam is received, that has to be received by the kohen. The next avodah after Kabbalah is halacha, bringing the blood towards the mizbeach, and then the fourth of the avodas is the sprinkling of the blood. The pasuk states, "V'shochat es ben habakar lifnei Hashem, v'hikrivu b'nei Aharon hakohanim." That means the shchita can be done by a non-kohen, but v'hikrivu b'nei Aharon hakohanim, that has to be done from the Kabbalah ve'elach with the kohen specifically, and that's what the Gemara says over here. V'kiba kohen hokamash malan mikabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kehuna. Nosno lechaveiroi, the kohen gave the dam to his fellow kohen on the assembly line. Shmas mina hoylacha shaloi beregel. Havya hoylacha. There's a machlokes whether the hoylacha, bringing the blood after the kabbalas hadam towards the mizbeach, has to be done with a movement of the legs. So we can derive from this Mishnah that since there's an assembly line of kohanim passing one to the next, that you do not require the legs to be moved, and still it's a valid hoylacha. The Gemara says, no, you have no proof from our Mishnah. Dilma hu na'id purta. Maybe he moved his feet a little bit towards the mizbeach, and that's what's required. If that's the case, then that's just hoylacha. That's the typical then walking towards the mizbeach with the dam. Why does our Mishnah have to then specify this, that you have an assembly line of kohanim that are doing halacha, if anyways they're moving their legs? Hokam Ashmalon answers the Gemara to explain. Berov Am Hadras Melech. Berov Am Hadras Melech means that we then have more kohanim involved in the mitzvah of the hakrovas hakarbon, and that brings more of a kavod to the king. Berov Am Hadras Melech. It states in the Mishnah, Kibel es hamole v'hich umachzir es harekon. The assembly line would then mekabel the mole dam, and then afterwards return back the empty vessel. Hokamash malan. I'm sorry. Aval if chaloi. The Gemara says, but not in the opposite order. It can't be that he's first taking the empty and then giving the full. Messiah le Rabbi Shimon Lakish. This supports Rabbi Shimon Lakish, who says, Rabbi Shimon Lakish ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. Since the full kli of blood is going towards the hakrovas hamizbeach, to be zorek on the mizbeach, it's part of the avodas hadam, of the hakrovas korban pesach, whereas the empty kli is only being brought back as a hechsher mitzvah. So then if you would then do it so that you would first take the empty kli before you take the full kli, then it'll be a problem of ein mavrin ala mitzvahs. So therefore you're makpi dafka in this order to take the full kli and then bring back the empty vessel.